forcing all you still single niggas to hurry up and get married. Y'all still here with me? We still in the same couch. For 3 on this pod that can even play around with that. The rest of y'all need to just keep it quiet.
And then it's you.
So that they don't stop wasting time. Go get married. If y'all continuously bring up something that I don't ever mention, how am I being defensive about it?
Emanny calls out Joe Budden and Ice for not being married. Yes, this episode that released was a interesting reconciliation of where every man on the show is in terms of their significant others. So how this starts off is where Emanny is made fun of and called out for being single. That's right. Emanny is painted kind of as this dude who doesn't have this stuff together because he doesn't have a woman by his side. But Emanny starts firing back, highlighting how the only person that's married is Parks, Mark, and Flip. And as a result, a lot of folks on the show get easily offended, specifically Ice and Joe.
You try to shoot back at ain't married yet, but there's a step between marriage and where you are.
For those of you that don't know, one of the most unsaid loud parts of the show is the fact that Joe has not married his girl. I mean, Joe keeps talking about marrying his girl seemingly every other episode, but it hasn't materialized. Same with Ice, who rants and raves about his significant other, aka the missing piece, every show, but the idea of them getting married just doesn't seem as concrete because he never really plays lip service to it, doesn't talk about it. So that is why everything started to come up, because Emanny was like, why am I being painted as the dude with Peter Pan syndrome and accused of never making a serious woman out of the girls that I date? But how about you guys? You guys are in the same boat. You guys are just in a relationship, but yet there's no ring on anyone's finger. But when Emanny started shooting, oh man, did the gaslight guns come out. Immediately, the fake married folk started to chastise Emanny for getting sensitive.
I don't mind is when I get to rebuttal, people look at me like I'm crazy for the rebuttal.
But why you want to rebuttal for though?
Because I want to buy it.
But you respond to shit like a single nigga, man. Look at you.
And y'all, do y'all want to tell me what y'all respond like?
Now, that's a common tactic gaslighters use, and it's something that's used on the show. When they are getting sensitive, they call you sensitive for trying to wake something up. I mean, the whole cast, not just Joe and Ice. I noticed Mark, Flip, Parks, they started seemingly trying to get at Emanny like, yo, you shouldn't be going there, as if what he said was that crazy considering what Joe and Ice were making fun of him for. I mean, Ice looked himself to be very frustrated, more than I anticipated, because I thought he was close to getting married, but he just looked flustered this whole conversation. So I'm like, is everything cool? Because if this is just for content over everything, why does everybody look so concerned? And the fans kind of had some feedback about this whole back and forth, with everybody being on Emanny's side. Like, I saw 95% of the feedback was Emanny's right, and Joe and Ice don't really have anything to stand on. Some even saying Emanny sealed Potter of the Month with this back and forth. My guess is that Joe and Ice were very concerned that their girl was going to watch this clip and get in their feelings. Now, I do know that Joe has admitted that his girl watches every episode of the pod, and that she even has friends that go back and tell her what happened on the show. So I do think that he was like, damn, this is going to go out. This is bad. Many might say if Joe was that offended, he would have edited the part out. But I think that goes against Joe's moral compass as a creator. So that's why he left it in. And it also would probably zap morale if when members of the show start to get in their bag, Joe just clips it out. It would look crazy on Joe's behalf. The one time that he kind of got one-ended or one-upped by someone, he just clipped it. But we'll have to monitor to see if this is a situation that gets brought up. Like, I wonder if because Emanny went there, Ice and Joe are like, damn, we took it there and he took it further. Maybe I got to watch myself. And what if Ice is resentful? Like, I didn't want you to go there. Now I'm going to look crazy when I go home. Because you got to remember, a lot of times the clips of the show isn't what does it. It's the actual reaction to the show. So people who saw the clip on Twitter, they might quote retweet it and be like, yeah, Joe ain't even marrying his girl. Ice ain't even marrying his girl. They better stop talking because they stuff ain't official. And then those ladies see those things and it starts to mess up their homes. And I think that is what's going on in this case. Now, we also have to look at some interesting situations that have arisen on the dirty streets of Twitter, on Twitter Spaces, because Joe's girl has been moving around like Omar on the wire, seemingly taking issue with anybody who pokes fun at their relationship. Like, for those of you who don't remember, Joe went on some overseas vacation with his girl, and many thought that was the moment she was going to get married. However, it didn't materialize, and I posted a clip of, LeBron James in the finals going against the Warriors, walking off the court when he realized he wasn't going to get a championship.
LeBron James congratulating some of the Warriors, and will get a standing ovation here at Quicken Loans Arena.
And she was very offended by that. Now, to me, it was a meme. It was a joke. It was something that was discussed on the show. So I thought it wasn't a big deal, but it was a very big deal for her. And sometimes I wonder why. Because a lot of times when you do this content thing, many folks will say, I don't care. This doesn't matter. This doesn't offend me. It's all a good thing. I don't care. At the end of the day, I'm going to do me. But then their actions would suggest that they are heavily bothered by internet conjecture and stuff that is on the show but gets painted as storylines, however, it really is rocking people in their gut, in their core. But there was also another scenario that popped off Sunday. Joe's girl went at a member of the Joe Budden Spaces community, and she was seemingly going off on her for always being in Joe's Spaces at one point, but then she left and she came back and acted like everything was good. And I think what it was is she wasn't really mad at the fact that she came back. I think she harbored resentment from the fact that this particular fan was always on Spaces with Joe. She was the one that was co-hosted. She was the one that was heavily platformed by Joe. And I don't know if she felt some type of way because of the attention. To me, it looked like a harmless Twitter space dynamic. I did find it weird when Joe would co-host this person, but he did it anyway. I think he just liked the way she carried Twitter. But that person would eventually go on to distance themselves from the podcast and go to the Rory and Mal community and go to the Hot and Bothered community and then come back to the Joe Budden community and seemingly try to build up some type of energy or another platform. But that angered his girl, and now we arrive to the situation today where I don't know if anybody could even joke about that situation. I don't know if anybody could even, because I would think if this is so serious for someone, don't bring it up on the pod no more. Don't talk about it. If it's no one's business, then make it so that it doesn't get discussed on air. But that could hurt the creativity of the show because Joe talks about other people's dynamics, their relationships, and only time will tell. Let me know what you think. Do you feel like Emanny made some good points? Do you feel like it's no one's business, even if it gets discussed on the show? You know how I do, man. I feel like women and children shouldn't be discussed if they're not mentioned on the show. But if they're mentioned on the show as part of the storyline, it's damn near impossible to not talk about it. It's damn near impossible. I know we go by the old street laws. That's actually where the women and children thing came from. You don't touch the women or children engaged in conflict on the streets. But with content isn't the streets. Everybody is making their own invisible lines in their head. And a lot of the times, I mean, the cast themselves crosses those lines when they talk about other people, right? Joe has talked about the dynamic people have had with their kids. Joe has talked about other people's wives. Same for the rest of the cast. So it's hard for content creators like me not to talk about certain subjects because then you seem like you're letting some invisible type of law control what you put out there. And it's a law that not even the Joe Budden podcast subscribes to. It's a law that only people in the streets really engage in because, I mean, it's some type of old tale about, women and children shouldn't be involved because they're not connected. But the proper analogous to this would be if in the streets someone was using their women and children as a way to bolster their operation. Yes, women and children would then be involved in the street code. And I think that's the same thing that's going on with the podcast. Yes, you can try to be a creator, and I see a lot of people in my field, a lot of people that do content similar to mine's, they be like, I ain't really gonna talk about the women and children in their lives. It's really the woman, but to me, it comes off as bias. Because if the women are part of the storyline of the show, then it doesn't make sense. There's pod wives, right? These are all characters now. And if they weren't characters, maybe you shouldn't introduce them. But now the cat's out of the bag. Pandora's box has been opened. And now there's a series of blurred lines that members of the show might weaponize against creators like me in the future in order to galvanize their fan base and make the creators look crazy for talking about those dynamics. But let me know what you think about this. I talk about it on my Patreon at great length, especially, Joe Budden's girl pressing a fan on Twitter. I thought that was crazy, but it materialized anyway. And I guess that's just the way it goes. All right, y'all. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.